You are not nurturing your desire. You are encouraging your fears. What you give attention to is what you're going to nurture. Shift your focus and see what happens in your outer physical world. When your imagination is active, you must look at what state of consciousness am I vibrating at. There's nothing outside of you that makes your wish happen. It starts with what you give your attention to, because what you give your attention to, you nurture. And what you nurture will manifest. Now, when you shift your focus, even the slightest move in your imagination, in terms of your mood, your attention, your thoughts, and your feelings. So your attention is linked to that which you desire. And if you don't like what's showing up in your external reality, stop and ask yourself this question. Where is my attention going? What has my attention right now? Become deliberate and conscious of where your focus is shifting to. Do I put my attention on what I fear or what I desire? This week's video covers the very important aspect of shifting your attention, shifting your focus, because what you give attention to is what you're going to nurture. And what you nurture is going to be what you manifest. Stay with me till the end to be wrapping up on the learnings that we covered in 2 other important videos. We're going to be looking at what holds your attention. Are you sure that your attention is focused on that which you desire and it's not focused on that which you fear? Sometimes you may think that you are focusing on what you desire, but your attention is really going to that which you hold as a fear in your subconscious mind. So it is very much up to you to become aware and observe, where is my attention going? Let me explain. Your desire may be for a new job. However, your focus is on all that you fear. For example, you may be reading about how bad the economy is. You may be listening to the news about how many companies are laying people off their jobs. And you may have conversations with friends talking about how difficult it is right now. So the point here is that the more you consume, the more you pay attention to how bad it is out there, the more you're going to believe it. The more bad news you hear, the more it embeds the fear, anxiety, and stress in your system. And when you believe the bad news that you hear, the more bad news you're going to hear. If you're reading stories and you are having conversations about how bad things are out there, your physical reality is only going to reflect that back to you. You are not nurturing your desire. You are encouraging your fears. If you have negative thoughts, you're going to be encouraging more negative thoughts, and you're only going to see that which is going to be on the level of vibration with thoughts that you're having. So the next time you're scrolling online, if a story didn't resonate with you, you would not be clicking on it, would you? So decide, is what I'm consuming, is what I'm reading, are the conversations that I'm having, are those going to feed my doubts and my fears, or will they feed my desires? It's even like the food that you consume. If you choose to consume unhealthy food every day, you cannot hope to have a healthy outcome for your health. So change what you consume down to the level of the conversations you have, the people you speak to, how many posts you're going to be reading on Facebook, or how many articles you're going to be reading online. Question what it is that you're consuming as you're consuming something. When you go through an experience, you go through an emotional reaction. When you go through that emotional reaction, you have thoughts and feelings about it. And that's what we're going to be tapping into. Whenever we create in our imagination, which is not simply daydreaming. We are really using the potent power of our subconscious mind together with harnessing our emotional state. Think of this as your energetic state. Whatever your energy state is, whatever your vibration is what you are radiating out. That's the law of vibration. Because the law of vibration is whatever energy, whatever state of consciousness, whatever vibration it is, whatever emotional state you hold, you're going to attract whatever it is that you assume to be true about your experience. You will only attract to yourself the energy that matches up with your energy. So if you are going through stress, what you're radiating out is stress, and that's going to attract more stressful situations. When your imagination is active, you must look at what state of consciousness am I vibrating at. So your energy state, your vibration, what you radiate out, what you are beaming out into the world is what you're going to attract back into your focus. You must be able to shift your emotional state. When you shift your emotional state, you must also make sure that you shift your thoughts and your feelings about those emotions. Now, in order to make your desires manifest, you must be able to access your imagination through your senses and make everything come alive for you in imagination through the inner senses before you can see it in your physical reality. The outcome is achieved. So you go into imagination, you go into the imaginal senses, and you make your imaginal scene real for you there. And when you stay true to that imaginal scene, when you live from that, when you become the person who already has that within themselves, in the emotional state, in their physical, even in their physical body, because when you embody what it is that you feel as the person who's already achieved that desire, a matter of you vibrating that out into the world. What that does is it puts out that frequency and says, I am the person who already has the SP, who already has the money, who already has the new job. Because I believe that, my vibration is at that level of harmony with the thing I desire. What you're putting out is that frequency to say, I'm already this person. Those circumstances now must match my frequency. This week, I'm going to be wrapping up on chapter 8 through the looking glass so that you can see this chapter in totality and also look at the key points that you should take note of. So grab a pen and paper. You might want to take some notes so that you can put into action some of the learnings from this chapter. This is somewhat of a checklist you can run through when you want to shift your attention from the outside world, where the world says you lack your desire, to the inner world. In part 1, we saw the lady who was lying in hospital with this very serious physical condition. She immerses herself into the feeling of what it was like to be running on the beach as a child. Now, if you have any health condition, when you can tap into the emotional state of what it's like when you were feeling great, that is going to help you embody a state of health while you are not feeling okay. So she shifts the focus from the physical condition of where she is not well, and she remembers a time when she was well. And by doing that, she brings that movement in her mind from her imagination. She brings that movement and that feeling back into her body. So look up that video and listen to the case study. It gives you some guidelines in terms of how to deal with health issues. Also, very importantly, she was no longer having feelings or thinking from the state of immobility. She was thinking from the state of mobility. So this is what it means to think from. From the video on the golden key, this is part 2. Here, we looked at abandoning your old state. And what would it mean to abandon your old self? Be like when you commit to someone you love. You let go of all the old heartache. You let go of all the old thinking. You let go of thinking about your ex-partner. You let go of thinking about the experiences. Well, at least you should, when you meet someone new. So when you look at how do I abandon my old state? It's like when you fall in love. So your old self will no longer look at the state of lack. The person who makes the commitment to having their desire commits to their desire being theirs. Someone that you've fallen in love with, think of it in that way. So you fall in love with the idea that your desire is already yours, like someone who has fallen in love with another. They've met their life partner. They want to commit to them. They want to marry them. They don't think of anyone else. You want to see your desire in that way. You must already feel what it would feel like when your desire is yours, when that outcome is yours. You move from a place of faith of, even though I don't see it in my external world, I know it is already mine. I have confidence. I have faith. I absolutely commit 100% to knowing that my desire is already with me. My desire is already mine. And that's the frequency that you keep sending out. This desire is mine. It is accomplished. It is complete for me. Then a matter of you persisting in that faith that it is yours, that you send out that frequency that says, I am so convinced this is mine. There is no doubt whatsoever. It is mine and I have it. And when you move from that perspective of you already have it, everything else in your reality, in your 3D reality, starts to be arranged around your new level, your new state, your new self. We see with the eye of imagination. In imagination, you must already see what you want to see. This is a non-negotiable. Your awareness, your consciousness is not just about the physical world. It's not about what you're seeing in front of you physically. You move your emotions, you move your thinking, you move your feeling state to everything that says, I already have accomplished this. At any time that you have a feeling of lack, you have any thoughts of lack, you must take ownership. You must actually even get to the point of, I want to stop and break. I break this pattern. I'm stopping this thought right now. Initially, you may have to get out of the old habits of believing the things that you've always believed. You have to get out of the habit of believing that you do not have. You have to get out of the habit of believing that you lack, because the only person that is believing that is you. And so in the video, deny your senses. Along with denying what your senses are telling you, along with denying what you're hearing in your physical world, you may even have to stop conversations with other people for a while. Why? You want to break the cycle of any negative conversations about what you lack and what you don't have. You have to physically remind yourself to cut down on negative thoughts. When you catch yourself thinking in a negative way, you may even want to tell yourself, stop that. I've done that on occasions where I've found in the beginning, when I was changing my thinking about moving to the online space, I was habitually at some points, I caught myself thinking, how am I going to get clients? Do I need to advertise? And I said, stop. Everything is first created in your consciousness and your imagination. You have adopted what it is that you've been feeling, what you've been thinking. When you've taken it as true, it becomes something that shows up in your reality. And so for a while, even though it's not showing up in your external world, you have to become the person who believes in it so much that it has to show up. It's as simple as you looking at, does this thought match to what I have been asking for in my imagination? Is what I am feeling matching to what I desire? And if the answer is no, you've now got to go and change what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Initially, it takes discipline. Do not be despondent. Even if you've had a negative thought, you can go and revise it, which means I change the story. I go and I change and I rewrite how I'm thinking. I rewrite how I'm feeling. I have a playlist, which I'll also link, that you can access in terms of how to do revision. So another way to do this is going to be, what is the outcome that I want? What is the outcome I desire? Do you have a clear outcome? Do you know the outcome you'd like? Do you know the outcome you would love to have? And this starts with the simple question of, what do I want? What do I desire? Make sure then that you do not go back to the old way of thinking. You only look at what are the new thoughts you would have when you have your end result. The final case study in this chapter, we're going to be looking at how you can transfer your imagination, even though you don't physically move from one location, how you transfer it to another. Seated in my living room in San Francisco, I imagined I was in my daughter's living room in London, England. I surrounded myself so completely with that room, which I knew intimately, that I suddenly found myself standing in it. She says, I surrounded myself so completely with that room that I knew intimately. This is the key. If there is something that in your imagination you can connect with that feels so vivid, whether it is something that you can see, something that you can touch, something that you can smell that is reminiscent of the place, or something that you hear, something that would be distinct in that from that environment. Now, this is a very, very, very important example of how you immerse yourself into your imagination, into your imaginal act, that there is no distinction between you in your imagination and reality. She says, my daughter was standing by her fireplace, her face turned away from me. A moment later, she turned and our eyes met. I saw such a startled, frightened expression on her face that I too became emotionally upset and immediately found myself back in my own living room in San Francisco. The mother steps beyond the limitations of physical reality through the means of her senses. When Neville realizes the promise, this is what he talks about, is your ability to control reality. You wake up in this 3D world, but you also wake up in imagination, in the dimensionally larger world where we are creator beings. So this is why it's so important, and why we're doing the work that we're doing is because we are awakening our imagination. And when we awaken, when our imagination is awakened, we realize the promise. When you realize the promise, you will wake up here, 3D, and you wake up in the dimensionally larger world. Now, when you wake up in the dimensionally larger world, you can control and create at that level of thought. You control and create from that level of feeling. You control and create from that level of imagination. Yes, 5 days later, I received an email letter from my daughter, which had been written on the day of my experiment with Imaginal Travel. In her letter, she told me she had seen me in her living room that day just as real as though I were actually standing there in the flesh. She confessed. She had been very frightened, and that before she could speak, I had vanished. The time of this visitation, as she gave it in her letter, was exactly the time I had begun the imaginative action, allowing, of course, for the difference in time between the 2 points. That she explained that she told her husband of this amazing experience, and he insisted that she write to me immediately. Your mother must have died or is dying. But I wasn't dead or dying, but very much alive and very excited by this marvelous experience. Now, again, I want to tell you, the promise is your awakened imagination, your ability to actually be in 2 places at once is what you're ultimately practicing around. What the mom did was she, by immersing herself into the feeling of what it would be like to see her daughter in her apartment, was so strong that she transcended what was 3D reality. Mother uses her senses to perceive what it would be like in that space that her daughter was in. And that is the imaginal travel. You see through your senses and not with your senses. It's shifting your focus. You now see how you can make there, here, and then now. Actually, if you could see it as, when you imagine, your imagination is a crystal ball. So you are living from that story now. You are living as the person who already has achieved that desire. The test is to not limit your imagination, because there is no range. What would you like to have? Your desire, or do you want to have your doubts? Commit to your desire. Forsake all else. Make it the most real thing for you. I would love to hear your comments about what you think about the experience this particular student of Neville's had in her travel between San Francisco and London. Do you believe it's too good to be true? Do you believe that it can happen? I would love to hear what you think about it. So remember, your consciousness creates your reality. Look for parts 1 and 2 in terms of this particular chapter. it goes into more detail in terms of how you can deny your senses, and you can use the golden key of penetrating your senses to achieve the outcome you most desire. This is Fazila Bijou, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video soon.